If you're a fantasy GM with Bills and/or Patriots players on your roster, stop scrolling. This one's for you. Buffalo, New England's divisional leader Leapfrog has created a lot of hype around this Monday Night Football matchup. So needless to say, this is going to be a battle of the best on all fronts. So let's break down the top starts and sits for both Buffalo and New England this week. Let's kick things off with Bills starts. First, Josh Allen with caution. Week after week, Allen leads fantasy quarterback ratings. Week 12, a perfect example of how, despite mistakes, Allen was highly productive. He threw 2 interceptions but went 23 of 28 for 260 yards, rushed for 43 yards total, and had 4 touchdowns, finishing the Bills' 31-6 domination over the Saints with a career-high 82% completion rate. So why the start Allen with caution claim? 3 words: the Patriots defense. Sitting pretty as league leaders, New England's defense will hands down be Allen and Buffalo's biggest test. For 4 consecutive weeks, the Pats have held their opponents to 0 second-half points. And how could they not when the boogeymen boast standout after standout? This is a group of experienced guys, most accustomed to playing together in big games just like this one. So there's a reason they rank first in interceptions, forced fumbles, and other than running backs, they rank in the top for quarterback, wide receiver, and tight end coverage. So obviously a must start. I mean, week over week, they're averaging more points than some star running backs and receivers. And speaking of the best, last month's AFC Defensive Player, Mr. Interception, the Patriots star defender, has downgraded one of the best fantasy receivers in the league, normally a must start, to my sit list this week. If anyone can move Bills wide receiver Stephon Diggs to a fantasy bench, it's Patriots corner J.C. Jackson. There's never been a doubt about starting Diggs until week 13. Diggs has 67 receptions for 847 yards and 7 touchdowns on the season. The stud wideout has posted at least 5 grabs in 5 of the last 6 games, 4 touchdowns in the last 3. But Belichick is the king of taking away the opposing top talent, and J.C. Jackson is his executor. A guy who many believe is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, Jackson is a lockdown corner who has catch-up speed and ball skills for days. So although it's a scary move for fantasy GMs to make, bench Diggs this week. Now, as of late, I'd say any Patriots receiver is a safe bet to start. Their offense is pretty unpredictable, so it could vary week to week who's going to have the most fantasy value. But especially with the Bills missing their game-changing cornerback, Tre'Davious White, out with an ACL tear, I really think that anyone would be a safe bet, except there's one guy that I would say should ride your fantasy pine this week. Tight end Jonnu Smith came into the season with high expectations to be one of Mac Jones's most reliable targets, but week after week he's fallen flat to that initial standard. And the stats speak for themselves: 25 receptions for 259 yards and 1 touchdown on the season, resulting in barely any fantasy value. And that's just the top recommendations. If you want the full list of Patriots and Bills starts and sits, you can head to our website for the full Week 13 fantasy column. Until game time, reporting from Gillette, Alexia Alfredo, the Boston Herald.